evening and welcome to our agenda for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting on September the 11th. This evening we will first have our public hearing. We have a public hearing for a zone request for the property at 409 East Warren Street from General Commercial C2 to Neighborhood Commercial Zoning C3. Anyone wishing to speak on that agenda change? Here now, we'll move on to the second public hearing. Public hearing on the request to rezone the property on East Lauderdale Street. And that's parcel that's from General Commercial Zoning C2 to C3 as well. Anyone who wants to speak on that? I'm going to close the public hearing. That call to order the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. At this time, I'll ask for the Pastor Tim McGehee to do the invocation, and I'll ask our color guard to do the presentation of the colors following the prayer, and they will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Our Heavenly Father, we pause on this Patriot Day to acknowledge that you are still on the throne. You haven't relegated that throne. You have not given it up. You don't take a vacation. You don't rest. You're always on the job 24/7, and we're so thankful for that. We're always under the careful, watchful eye of you. Lord, we remember on this day what happened 22 years ago, and we still remember the families of those that gave their lives and those that went in to sacrificially give for their country, their fellow countrymen. We thank you for those that gave their life. We thank you for those that continue to put their life on the line each and every day, whether they are first responders or in our military. We thank you, Lord, for our great country that we live in. We do ask you to forgive us where we fall short. We ask you, Lord, to turn our hearts and our minds towards you. We ask you to be with this meeting tonight. Preside over this meeting. Watch over this meeting, Lord. Give these, our alder men and women and our mayor and our city officials wisdom and direction as they lead our city. We ask all these things in the precious name of Jesus, the one who sits on the mercy seat interceding for us. Amen. Amen.
Present arms. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arms.
Thank you, Reverend McGehee, and thank you, Color Guard. You see, and if you'll pardon the oversight on my part, we do have one other public hearing. Just that anyone we have a public hearing on a text amendment for the zoning ordinance for home occupation. Anyone that wishes to speak on that? Now we close the public hearing and move on. Ask the city recorder to call the roll.
Hallmacher.
Here.
Berry.
Here.
Glick.
Here.
Noes.
Here.
Mann.
Here.
Mathis. Wilson.
Present.
And we have six present. Okay, thank you. We have no commendations or certificates tonight, so we'll move right into comments from citizens. All citizens that are interested will be invited to speak for up to 3 minutes about any matter within the purview of the board. Please speak into the microphone and begin by stating your name and address. Anyone wishing to speak? Comments from citizens?
Hello all. I'm Jason Jones. My residence is 804 Westwood Drive, and I know a lot of y'all know me from other city capacities, but now I'm going to put on a different hat. I am a food truck owner. There's an ordinance that we're looking at providing maybe some guidelines and stuff, so it's your agenda item 23-163. And I just want to kind of give some support to that and kind of get some feedback to that and just make sure that everybody's on the right track of what we're wanting to do with this, because there's a legitimate concern. I have a social media group that has about 3,000 members, and everybody's kind of geared up about this, wondering, okay, what's the city going to do here? What are we going to do? We love our food trucks. We want to make sure that they stay here. So I have a few items of concern that I kind of want to present and make sure that we can gather together everybody and get on the same track with this, if we don't mind. So I'll gather my notes here. I agree with the need of having clear guidelines for our local food truck vendors, but it says lastly, public safety. Public safety is the number one priority for us. Anybody that comes here and establishes a food truck, we want public safety to be our number one priority. You know, that's just a given for us. But I do want to hit on a few key points within this agenda item that carry a few concerns by more than a few people. Like, how will the ordinance and guidelines be established? Will Tullahoma model the guidelines and ordinances after those nearby cities? The way we look at it here is we are set up and available to go to Manchester. It's pretty much a city checklist. You go down, you pay your $50, you get it for a year. I believe in one of the cities in Franklin County, it's several $100s, but the city does a lot more for them. It provides them specific places to go and set up. So that's maybe something, since we're just starting this, we may want to look forward and see, does the city want to do something like that for accommodations? What do the people really want? On the social media side, I asked that question. People would love one big gathering place for these food truck vendors to come. So maybe something in the near future we could do something like that. It's of heavy interest to people. Will there be an opportunity for food truck owners to give input and feedback to city officials prior to ordinances and guidelines being set? You know, we can work with people. We don't want to just say, hey, here's what you're going to do. You know, we would love to help you guys out. We want to do it. We want to create this right for all of us. We food truck vendors want to create a food truck friendly city for the benefits of our citizens. People are highly interested in our products and what we do. We give a wide variety and people love us. I am currently working with Tullahoma Parks and Recs on bringing numerous food trucks to the inaugural 5-Star Food Festival on Veterans Day at Fraser McEwen, and would love to continue building a long-lasting relationship with the city leaders regarding our food truck friendly city. You know, we're coming together, we're doing things right for our citizens. So like I said, we're wanting to build these ordinances, guidelines. Let's do it right. Let's have a clear focus of where we want to go. That's what we want. And lastly, although it is highly requested by citizens, we food truck owners are not asking to be able to go down the streets of Tullahoma with music playing like ice cream trucks to draw attention, but only to provide our citizens with the food they want. That's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, Chase Matheson, West Hogan Street. A lot of you know me outside of the city of Tullahoma, and I come to you as not only a citizen of this city, but also as a member of the press. And I want to speak about Shreddergate. Shreddergate has led to a settlement request of over $450,000, and as taxpayers, we have concerns. The documents were alleged to be found in a public bin in a publicly accessible area of a public building. This means, and they were unsecured, this makes them presumably subject to the Tennessee Public Records Act. If they are not subject to the Tennessee Public Records Act, it would be based almost assuredly on the content of the documents. Now, I understand that the excuse or the explanation given for shredding these documents is that they were just excess papers accumulated in the normal course of business and therefore not subject to the records retention policies of this board. Well, I'm going to accept that as true, and that means that I want to see a copy of these documents. Now, Honorable District Attorney Northcott was at this very podium, and he quoted the opinion of the case Tennessean v. Metro and Rule 16 of Criminal Procedure. Well, Scripps v. Department of Tennessee Mental Health and the TBI was a later case involving a reporter, Phil Williams, and many others. The defendants in Scripps also pled the argument the Tennessean, which is also the case that was quoted in the denial of my public records request. The opinion in Tennessean was based around evidence provided to government bodies by non-government bodies and investigative files, such as text messages and security cameras from Vanderbilt University, witness statements, not documents that were subject to the Public Records Act prior to and after the investigation. Scripps clarifies that the government documents stored and housed by the respective agencies in the normal course of business do not become exempt because they later become relevant to such criminal investigations. Now, Scripps does mention the location of the records, but further along in the decision, it clarifies the intent of their decision is to prevent the state from making otherwise publicly available records exempt, and the reference to location is clearly more of a statement of fact as it relies on the specific case rather than the direction for future interpretation of the law, especially when compared to this Tennessean case. I think we could all come to a compromise that avoids the publicity of litigation, the expenses of litigation, and maybe we can use photocopies. But I think that might be the reasonable outcome, because some of these cases can cost more than the settlement request that's being asked for, and surely we don't want to spend any more of these nice people's money. Thank you.
Is anyone else?
Hunter Trimble, 107 Kings Place. I come here tonight. I'm a citizen, resident of Tullahoma, a business owner of Tullahoma, but I come here tonight as a part of the Tullahoma Soccer Association. I'm a father of two little girls that share those fields with approximately 350 other youth throughout the city and other counties that come in to play almost 6 months out of the year. Not quite 6 months, but somewhere between 5 and 6 months that those fields are occupied on Saturdays. I recently joined the TSA board less than a year ago to fill a spot to help facilitate some of the communications and some of the relationships within the city, Parks and Rec, and the association. Last week, Wednesday or Thursday, I believe there was a survey that was sent out with 4 items on there. First being at the top, the facilities, restrooms, and so forth at Johnson Lane, and then 3 other projects that the city is contemplating for the upcoming fiscal year. To myself and to others on the board and others who are not on the board but are active within TSA, that was news to us. This project, I believe, was approved over a year ago, give or take, and there had been no forward progress made towards achieving that end goal there. All we're asking for is to have a facility, a complex that has restrooms, that has concessions that would be available for purchase, and there's a lot more to offer with the use of that complex than just for soccer. Things that would bring ancillary revenue to the city that would help pay for the cost. We don't care what the cost is, if it's $800,000, $827,000, or if it's $500,000. We would just like to have facilities for the public use on the weekends and days that the soccer fields are in use. So look forward to hearing the discussion on that. Now's probably not the appropriate time, but if we can help in any way to move this forward and do it in the most cost-effective way possibly, and unite there together outside of this type of forum, we're glad to do that. So I'll leave with this. As a citizen of Tullahoma, someone who has been engaged and hear from people about the Tullahoma Board and so forth. We must do better. We can do better. And let's all help make Tullahoma be as wonderful as possible. So, thank you.
Well, my privilege, Mayor, is kind of indirectly mentioned there, so I'd like an opportunity to respond briefly.
Go ahead.
To just kind of squash this now, I put out a survey that had nothing to do with anyone on this board or the city of Tullahoma. That was for my own personal use, and this was communicated to some of those folks, and the intent kind of was communicated. I think that, and we'll talk about this later tonight, so I won't get into it. I don't think that anybody up here is going to say, no, we're not getting bathrooms, right? That was 100% for Daniel Berry's use in my question and my thing. Anytime that I put a survey out, it's me. It's not the city of Tullahoma. It's Daniel Berry doing it. And I think that I think it kind of got blown out, not to you, right? I know you're just a messenger. I think that it was kind of blown out of proportion, and we could have solved a couple things with a phone call first, because we had just had one 2 days prior, or a message back and forth. And so, kind of moving forward, I am going to do more surveys. And so just know now that those are for my use, and they do not reflect on this board or have anything to do with anybody else's decisions up there. I wish I had that kind of sway, but I do not.
Thank you, Mr. Trimble. Your points are well taken. Anyone else?
Not too late, Rick.
Please state your name and address. It's under the purview of the board.
Buzzer. Jessica Fogarty. Do I need to say my address? 2360 Naboka Road, Tullahoma, Tennessee. Is there anything else? Okay. Sorry, I just had to dash in. And I'm not even sure what the discussion's been, but I just wanted to come and lend my support for the bathroom facilities at Johnson Lane. I guess from like a place of experience, what I could tell you is I've been a participant over there for 10 years now, and no end in sight, as my youngest is only 9. So I will be over there for many more years, I think. But I guess speaking about it from just the community that gets to use it, as far as all the different soccer teams in our community that use it, the rec league, the travel ball, the high school kiddos, the middle school kiddos, I just know that even if you go outside of that scope of just players and coaches, I know there are a lot of kids in our community, that's one of their first jobs. I know for my girls it was to get to be a referee, and just to think of like wanting to have a nice facility for them to be safe. As a mama, if you drop them off and they're only 14 or 15, you have to kind of hope that if inclement weather strikes, someone's going to put them in a car, I guess, so just to know that we'd have a facility out there that they could go and take cover would be really, really important, I think. And I think it would communicate a lot to them that we care a lot about the service they're providing for our community. And the other thing is, I feel like this is something that our community could be proud of, and then it could maybe obviously open up potential for being able to host tournaments and things of that nature. And I think that that then really speaks to the broader scope of what this could do for our community, because I think at that point, you're talking about a lot of revenue that's going to be generated. I go to these tournaments out of state, in state, multiple times, and just from all that we have to expend as far as food and lodging and things like that. So, and I think for the health of your citizens, it's, making a big statement as far as saying, wow, we really value you playing in a sport and being a part of a team, and just all the positive benefits for that. So I don't even know if this was really the proper time to get up and say this, but I sure hope it was. So I just am massively in support of it. So
Thank you for your comments. Well taken.
thank you.
Anyone else? If there's no other comments from citizens, we'll move into the approval of the agenda. Need a motion to approve the agenda. Motion from Barry, seconded by Glick. I'd like to make a change in the agenda. Personally, there's 16 items in our agenda tonight, and only one item on the beer board. I'd like to move the agenda with beer board to the first thing on the agenda, right, even before the consent agenda. So that's an amendment I'd like to make.
Second.
You have a motion and a second.
Mayor, I don't know that you need to do that. I think that you can just adjourn this meeting and go straight into that.
We can do it this way, too. This one way.
Can.
We're halfway
Agenda
there.
item, different boards, but yeah, you can.
Anyway, move the beer board agenda before the, it's good to talk for next time. That's it. Got a motion and a second, and ready to vote on changing the agenda. Passes 6-0. So it's, with that, since we're having the beer board first, we'll just move right into the beer board.
I'm trying to see.
Got a voting.
It's already been passed. We did, I guess.
Well, we already voted, so.
That was only the other amendment. We didn't approve the agenda. We said approve the agenda. But I have an amendment to the agenda. As tradition,
Back out of that. 1 second. Give her a second to catch up.
traditionally at the same meeting that we have the election of aldermanic representative, we also do the election of the mayor pro tem. So I would like to add that to the agenda tonight as well.
Actually, the mayor pro tem is elected for a session. The session goes
That's
for
not
2
correct.
years.
No, sir.
Can we get an opinion?
No, that's
We
incorrect.
had the meeting with the people from MTAS, and that subject came up.
We've elected them every year.
Marshall, do you have any recollection of that subject?
No, I don't, but I believe traditionally the mayor pro tem is selected at the same time that the mayor makes appointments for representatives to the board and commissions of the city. I think that's been our tradition from year to year.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Does anyone disagree with me about that?
Mr. Worsham, you are spot on.
We have
Thank you.
we have always done it that way in the past because we had an election every year. So and they serve for a session,
We start a new a session is from
election to election.
No, sir.
July 1
July 1
to June 30
That's
is
correct.
the session in our charter.
Yes, sir. When it talks about, request to speak, I'm sorry.
Well, can I get a second first and then we can have discussion?
Second.
Here, we got a second. Okay, we'll add that to the agenda item to elect the mayor pro tem.
Well, we have to vote on it, but I've requested to speak now. Okay, so to piggyback off of that, Mr. Worsham is correct. So, yes, Mr. Mayor, a session, especially when it comes to a session is also offered a lot in its language in our board rules and as well in parliamentary procedure and Robert's Rules of Order. And when it refers to a session is simply a fiscal year, a legislative session, in other words. And so for our board, a legislative session is from year to year. So when we are, for lack of a better term, not allowed or banned from bringing up certain items during a parliamentary session, it means that it's year to year. We wouldn't be able to, let's say, change something or bring that up for approval again until the next legislative session. It doesn't mean until 4 years later. It means until the next session. So for that reason as well, not only is it Robert's Rules, Parliamentary Procedure, and our tradition, but I also believe that it may be in our municipal code that Mayor Pro Tem is to be elected on a session-to-session basis.
I'll yield to the board, but I yield under duress because that's not my understanding at all. Okay.
If that were the case, then the election of the representative planning commission wouldn't be on here either. They would be the same.
That's correct.
It's the same.
That's correct. You're correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we have Another agenda item added. All in favor, so vote. Approved. Doesn't matter to me. No. Passes 6-0. Any other comments on the agenda? Not, we'll get a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Motion from...
Well, we just vote, we don't need another motion.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
That just goes, that is for the regular.
Okay, I need a motion from Barry, seconded by Mann. Any further discussion? Ready to vote? And that passes 6-0. Okay. With that, we're moving into the beer board at this point in time. We'll adjourn the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting and move into the beer board. And get a motion to approve the agenda for the beer board. Motion from Barry, seconded by Mann. Any discussion? Motion to approve the consent agenda. Passes 6-0. On the consent agenda, just the minutes from the August 28th meeting. No unfinished business. The new business tonight on BB 31 is beer board application for a special events permit for a nonprofit of the Highland Rim Kiwanis Club. Emily Raths will be the manager in charge of the beer sales and the Journey in the Art to the Art Performance Rock Concert at Grata Stadium on September the 15th and waiving the permit fee. Motion approved. Motion from Barry, second by Glee. Any discussion on that?
I think we need to add to the motion waiving the fee. Oh, I think that just needs to be said. Right?
It's in there.
What is it?
Waiving fee.
Okay. I thought I was asking if we wanted to waive the fee.
It's in the motion. Ready to vote. Passes 6-0. Congratulations. Looking forward to a big event. We'll adjourn the beer board and go back to our regular agenda. At this point in time, we'll hear from our report from Alderman. Mr. Wilson, Alderman Wilson, we'll start with you this evening.
Thanks, Mayor. Saturday, I attended the Coffee County Fair, and I have to say that it was well attended. There were a lot of great rides, lots of great food. I hope everyone got a chance to get out there and participate in that. And I also would like to speak about an event that's coming up on September 16th at 5 p.m. that's called The Gathering. It will be held at the Coffee County Raider Academy, and it's the flyer says, calling all worshipers, intercessors, leaders, and pastors from across Middle Tennessee, join us in a powerful gathering as we unite in prayer and worship, standing between the porch and the altar. Together we can contend for the transformation of our region. And there will be a lot of speakers there, a lot of great speakers. There'll be different, there are multiple mayors that are attending if you are interested. And it's just a really great event. And again, that will be September 16th at 5 p.m. And if anybody wants any details about that, I can provide those, and I'll also share it on Facebook as well. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Good event.
Last week, I met with our Charter Revision Committee and staff for our first review of the updated charter from MTAS. I'd like to remind any citizens that would like to give their input on this very important process to please email myself or the city administrator with any suggestions or comments you may have. And also, since today is 9/11, I wanted to take a moment to not just remember those we lost on that terrible day, but to acknowledge and thank our Tullahoma police officers, our firefighters, our first responders for the jobs that they do. We appreciate each and every one of you, your courage, your selflessness, your willingness to put your personal safety on the line every day to ensure ours. So thank you all. God bless all of y'all. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Alderman Mocker.
To echo the sentiments of Mr. Alderman Mann, I too would like to express my sincerest thanks to all of our first responders, TPD, and fire department. Today I was reminded, I was in the building that I was in over at North Junior High when 9/11-2001 happened, and it wasn't far from the very spot I was standing, and it was a little surreal. And that year they did, I remember the Templeton Essay Contest, the Laws of Life Templeton Essay Contest. I don't know if you guys remember those, but I won the essay contest that year because I wrote an essay on patriotism, and I can still remember, because I had to memorize it, the very first line of my essay, and it was, "Patriotism has swept throughout our nation like an enveloping breeze." And I remember that feeling of being so proud to be an American, and I just hope that, as we continue forward as a board, as a city, that we can, appreciate the freedoms that we have been afforded. So, with that said, I'm going to bring this up later on in the agenda, but there's a governor's conference coming up, hosted by the Department of, forgive me, I think it's Department of Economic and Finance in the state, and it's going to be on September 18th and 19th, and I hope that we can look at that too when we're revisiting some of these dates next week, if anybody has any interest in going from this board or even potential city staff that it could affect. And so I encourage everybody to look at that. You can still register on site. I know we're a little behind on that. Had a couple of phone calls over the past few weeks with some concerns. One was a noise complaint about construction taking place at 5 a.m. in the morning next door. And, considering that we are headed into what looks to be a very busy few years with a lot of development planning going on, potentially, just to bring that up to this board, that maybe we might want to consider that being a part of our noise ordinance. Not that we want to or don't want to, but that was asked of me as why was that not a part of the teeth in our noise ordinance. Something for you guys to think about. I don't have an opinion yet either way, but wanted to bring that up and told that person that I would tell the rest of the board. And then one clarification on Shreddergate. I've seen in a couple of different places on emails and otherwise, just to clarify, we as a board, or me personally, never asked to put those documents in the control of law enforcement. That was not something that we voluntarily elected to do as a board or signed off on in any way. And I've seen that written in some news articles and otherwise, so I just wanted to clarify that wasn't something that we checked a box and said yes to. And another complaint, wondering if we do have an SRO full-time at Fair Elementary. And just wanted to let this board know that since we have accepted state funds in order to operate our city SRO program, we have to make sure that we have those guys on site. So if you get a chance, I encourage all of you to be involved in our schools. There's possible ways for you to go and read to kindergartners, and they want us there. So, make your appearances and be involved. That's all I have.
I echo the other Alderman's sentiment on today and what it means. I was out at the golf course with my father out here at the base, and I think I was 19 at the time maybe, and I started 20, and I still don't, it was years and years later before you still, I think, understand the full weight of that. Something that you had said is in that moment, and it's a shame that it took that, but in that moment we were all Americans. And on days like today, we remember the victims, because they were victims, and remember those the thousands since who were victims of that day. But then also remember that we are Americans, and we all are Americans, and that we can find ways to get together. And I hope that it doesn't take another event like September 11th to bring us back and make us what makes us special. To my opinion, what makes us the greatest nation in the world is not our government, it's not our flag, it's us. And I hope that we can find our way back to that. Outside of that, I am just consumed with football. I've got 3 teams at Bel Air there. I regret us voting yes to those lights now, because we used to play only on Saturdays, and now we play Tuesday and Thursday and Saturdays. And I love the little ones, but it is a lot. I'm extremely proud. Kindergartners had a tough game Saturday. It was a tough loss. My second and third, we've split into 2. One had a tough first game. The other one, we came out on top against Farah. They're a well-coached team. And if you want to see some exciting football, come out tomorrow at 7 o'clock. The Bel Air Bees are going to be playing the Bel Air Bees. So it's exciting. And I know that those... we had a huge first Saturday, and I want to commend the Parks and Rec staff in their work. They're not here tonight because they're off accepting awards, I believe. But it went well. That's all I've got, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds like it's going to be a real grudge match between the Bel Air,
Who's the best coach?
the Bees against the Bees. So, I just want to echo my sentiments in favor of the soccer people. I regularly talk to staff and are asking the progress of this project, and as a matter of fact, as late as today, right before this meeting, I didn't even know you guys would be here, but I don't know what the holdup is, and I think the thing is going to go forward as quickly as possible. At least that's what I'm pushing for. So I'm maybe waiting to hear some answers. There's a study session tonight to talk about some of the financing that will be financing the project there. So maybe finally we can get something moving forward on that, and you guys will see a difference soon. So as far as 9/11, it was very emotional this morning when I was watching all the coverage on TV, and my heart goes out to all the families that lost anybody, and the whole nation lost people. But I also thought of that our freedom were not only under attack that day, it's under attack every day. So we need to remain ever vigilant to do what we need to do to protect our freedom and protect our rights, because they're not just given to us freely. That's all I have.
Thank you. I certainly echo all those comments about 9/11, and everyone remembers where they were and what they were doing and the impact it had. And seeing the firemen do their stair climb this past Friday was a great way to recognize and remember the things that we lost. Okay. With that, I have I do have board appointments that I am making for next year, and all of my appointments are the same as they were this year, so I did not make any changes. It seems like to make changes every year to board appointments, you defeat the purpose of getting people involved in doing things with a group and the change. So I've not done that. I've kept them the same. I made one minor change, and that is Alderman Mathis is on the Consolidated Communications Committee, and sometimes he can't make those meetings. And I've asked Alderman Mann if he would serve as an alternate there to serve when Alderman Mathis cannot. So with that, there's no other changes from that. And Alderman Berry, we can certainly talk.
Mr. Mayor, it's been pretty well traditional that you ask the board members if they're willing to serve in those capacities, and not just a blanket appointment. And I personally would like a change, and had asked for that already. I believe you have served as the Airport Authority liaison now for the duration of your entire term as mayor. I find that less than appropriate. And I think you should reconsider these, and I would ask that you did, perhaps before the next meeting.
This is my appointments for next year. Moving on to the reports from the city attorney.
We have some other stuff. We have the election of the alderman, representative of the planning commission.
And Mayor Pro Tem.
And Mayor Pro
Just do that
Tem.
while we do that. Let's do that. Let's go with election to the planning commission. Some member from the board is planning commission currently served. You're currently serving there. Alderman, you enjoying serving on planning commission?
Enjoying may be a strong word.
Would you like to be renominated?
I think it's somebody else's turn.
Personally, I think you've done a good addition to it, and certainly I'd like to see you continue to serve. But anyway, it's up to the board. Nomination. Alderman Berry.
I'll nominate Bobby Wilson if she will accept.
I'll accept.
I nominate Derek Mann if he will accept.
You have two nominations, Alderman Wilson and Alderman Mann.
I'll accept.
You have two nominations, Alderman Wilson and Alderman Mann. Any other nominations? Pass the ballot.
I think we have ballots.
We can just
We just, we just say it. All right, no, because then we could weigh each other's votes.
we just put it on a paper.
I'm with you.
I guess you need to put who you appoint and your name on the...
Don't get them confused.
Don't cheat.
Count the ballots.
Mayor Noes for Mann, Berry for Wilson, Almacher for Mann, Wilson for Wilson, Glick for Mann, Mann for Wilson.
Is that 3-3?
Is that a tie?
That's a tie.
That would be a tie.
We go again, unless somebody drops out.
I'll drop out.
Alderman Wilson, you will serve on the Planning Commission. They meet on the third Monday of each month. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Nomination for Mayor Pro Tem. I'll nominate Jerry Mathis.
He had his hand up first. Alderman Berry did.
Derek Mann.
Alderman Mann.
Alderman Wilson.
I nominate Alderman Almacher.
Surely we got some more.
We both have 6 votes.
Okay, we have Mann, Almacher, and we have Roman Mathis.
Berry for Mann, Mann for Mann, Noes, Mathis, Almacher, Almacher, Glick, Almacher, Wilson, Almacher. So 3 for
Alderman Almacher, you're the new Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I believe that concludes everything on that part of the agenda. This time we'll have a report from our city attorney.
I met with the committee that is studying the revisions to our charter that Alderman Mann referred to a moment ago. And I've talked with Judge Conley about that. He took the matter under advisement as the revisions to the charter relating to the city court and the city judge's powers, and I'll be working with him on that. There are a number of issues that we did discuss, a number of issues that need to be sort of refined. Hannah Rogers had done a really good job of sort of compressing all of the old charter provisions into a more modern version of that. But it's going to take a while to do that. It's really going to be beneficial to the city that we do accomplish that soon. And there are a lot of things that we do need to look at. Eventually, I hope to have this whole matter before the Board of Mayor and Aldermen because of the sunshine law, unless we want to have open meetings, we can't have but one alderman present at those meetings that where we're considering those things. We'll meet again pretty soon, but in the meantime, Ms. Rogers is going to revise a lot of provisions that we discussed at that time. And if y'all have any input into that, please let Alderman Mann know, and we'll, or me, one or the other, and we'll try to incorporate those into that, which we're doing. Also, I hope maybe next week, if everyone can be available, it was on the downtown committee about the downtown plantings that we're talking about, maybe next Thursday afternoon to meet with Mr. Ralph Graham, who's a horticulturist, who is donating his efforts and his expertise in designing those planting beds for us, have some information maybe from Ms. Wilson about funding for those things, and to try to move forward with those things now, because the planting season this fall is fast approaching. So if you have any input to that or any ideas that you have about that, please let us know. Do you have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
On the charter committee, if those meetings are publicly announced, can more than one alderman attend then?
I don't see why not, but you have to announce those probably. Actually, our code of ordinances says 7 days notice is required rather than the adequate public notice for those things. So if we want to establish maybe either a regimen for when we're going to do those, or in advance know when that's going to occur, yes, sir, you could all be at those meetings.
I'd like to see them publicly announced.
I might just
At
say
least
as a
one.
matter of practicality that having all of you initially might be kind of productive because there are a lot of things that we just kind of knocked around now. I might think it's better probably for us to refine it some more before we start doing that, but certainly we want the input of all of you all eventually on those things.
Okay, before it's too late.
Well, it won't be too late until the board votes on it at some point in time, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. City Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over the past 5 days, I've been busy. I've met with all the department heads over the past 5 days or so, looking to just formally introduce myself and get to know them better, setting up lines of communication, and then asking them what are their biggest challenges, but what are also the greatest opportunities that they see for their department. So those discussions are going to continue on endlessly as I continue to see what we can do to continue to work with all of our departments. Participated in the Development Advisory Committee, even though we did not have anyone show up. I was really impressed with how we had so many shareholders at the table ready to help a developer if they came in with questions or needed some assistance. Not only were our people there, but Elk River, TUA, and others. So I thought that was a great reflection of what we're looking to do as a city. Had a couple of meetings with the Chamber of Commerce, basically to introduce myself to them, and then also the city administrator serves on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce, so I was able to sit in on one of the board sessions. Attended the meeting that Mr. Worsham had talked about with MTAS for the charter revisions, along with Alderman Mann and others, so look forward to that continuing as well. Friday was a great event. It was the 9/11 stair climbing event that Mayor Nowitz had spoken about. If you haven't been to that, I really encourage you to go because it does several things. One is obviously looking to remember those that gave their lives, but also looking to educate students who weren't born and did not realize what that's all about. And so when the event is set up, as soon as the event starts, the bell rings, and then the ABC News clip with Peter Jennings where it comes on and the not understanding of what was happening, you'll watch that with the children and it really impacts their lives and they have a better understanding. So I thought it was a great event. Was able to go to the ribbon cutting at North Jackson Laundry. Has anybody been there yet?
I drove by it.
You need to go inside. It is unbelievable. It is 21st century state-of-the-art equipment. I could go on about that, but with the big screen TVs and whatnot, they've done an outstanding job of setting up a great laundry service. Attended the Rotary meeting at Lakewood and proud to be sponsored by our mayor for membership, so I'm looking forward to that. And also have volunteered for the TCS Reading Buddies program. And then today I was able to tour the fire halls, not only the one that we have in South, but also on Avoca. And that really opens your eyes to the commitment that these people are making. It's not an 8 to 5 job, but you're talking about 24-hour shifts, and what they're able to do is really amazing. Just a couple of announcements. Again, Journey to the Heart concert is going to be this Friday at 7 o'clock. It's going to be 45 minutes of Heart and 45 minutes of Journey. We will have food trucks there, and the Tullahoma Kiwanis Club is going to be selling beer. Saturday and Sunday at Johnson and at Grider, we're going to be hosting 2 Grand Slam baseball tournaments with over 30 teams. And so when you think about bringing in 30 teams from out of the city, then you're talking about sales revenue, tax revenue as it relates to food, drinks, gas, those types of things. The Wagner, at Wagner we had the Frank Mullins League started off on Saturday. They had over 1,300 people in attendance on Saturday. And that is unheard of. So I kudos to Alderman Berry and all of those that commit all their time to those young people. I know it's making a huge difference, so thank you. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Quick. Let's move to the... Yes, I did have another announcement I need to make before we move into the agenda. our CDPC, our Citizens Planning and Development Committee members, we had 2 members resign from that. Alderman Glick has nominated someone to serve as the replacement for the one that he had nominated. It turns out that the one that I had nominated also had resigned. So there is another vacancy on the committee that I would encourage any citizen that has an interest in the development of the community to put their application in the citizen participation form. So put that in and certainly be considered for that. You'd be well rewarded. Your service would be appreciated. Thank you for the reminder of that.
Mr. Mayor, I'll tell you the name later, but I have a great nominee for that as well, and they do already have a citizens participation form in.
Please pass it along and encourage them to do that.
My appointment was Jerry Hinke, by the way.
Oh, well, that's who I was going to say.
Spoiler.
Great minds, right? You switch seats.
Yeah, I'm getting pressured over here to switch seats, and if everybody remembers, I already kicked Jerry Mathis out of his seat one other time when I got elected, so somebody needs to break the news to him gently, but I'm going to go ahead and switch over there where it's not as awkward next week.
Make a note you'll be voting as Mathis the rest of the night.
Nobody confuses you too.
It's up there on the big board is what matters there.
On camera.
You have to switch voting terminals.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, if you switched out the little pad, bring your pad.
Yeah, he's not even logged on, so.
Bring your.
He does too.
Be kind of nice having Jerry back here.
While we're getting set up here, let me go into the consent agenda and let me read the caption for the consent agenda. First is simply the meeting minutes from the August 28th meeting, regular meeting, public hearing. At number 157 is the request to approve a permit request for special event signs for the public way for the Highland Kiwanis Club. And waive all fees on the sign issue. Request to approve a permit request for a special event sign for public right of way for Community Pride Foundation. Flip the switch to light the Christmas tree. So those are all on the consent agenda, those 3 items. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion from Barry, second by Mann. Any questions? Any comments? Ready to vote? Vote yes, approve the consent agenda. Approved 6-0. Under unfinished business, we have an ordinance number 1603, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of Tullahoma as set forth in Tullahoma Municipal Code, which is ordinance number 1392 to rezone the parcel located at the 100 block of New Rock Creek Road. It's 2.85 acres from general commercial C2 to neighborhood commercial C3. This is for passage on second and final reading. Motion from Barry, seconded by Glick. Any questions? Ready to vote. Approved 6-0. No other unfinished business, so moving into the new business. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Tullahoma and set forth in Tullahoma Municipal Code, which ordinance number 1392 to rezone the parcel located at 409 East Warren Street from commercial C2 to C3. That was on the public hearing earlier this evening. This will pass on the first of 2 readings. Alderman Barry, second by Mann. Questions? Ready to vote.
I do have a question.
Passes 6-0. Sorry.
I tried to push it. Do we know, I mean, when they're doing these, do we know what the plan or intention is going to be?
Just refer that to the city administrator, perhaps to planning director.
Yeah, I'm going to have Mr. Rush, our planning director, speak to that.
Well, if you don't, are you talking about, this is for the home occupation?
No. This is rezoning issue.
The rezoning on the C2 to C3?
C2 to C3 on north of 1604.
Yes, this applicant indicated that he was going to use it for townhomes, townhouses. That's what he was wanting to be rezoned for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Ready to vote?
Are we going on the same one?
Yeah. Never got voted. That passes 6-0. Ordinance number 1605, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of Tullahoma, rezone parcels located on East Lauderdale Street. It's in the same neighborhood, by the way, from C2 to C3 as well. So this is passes on the first two readings. Wilson, you have another question?
I was just curious about this one as well, if we knew what the intention was.
It's pretty much the exact same parcel. It's located right next to it, so it's the same use.
I assumed, but I didn't want to assume.
Yes, sir.
Ready to vote? Got another zoning issue, 1606, ordinance to amend zoning map of the city of Tullahoma, which is provision of 1601 on home occupations. Requirements in section 403B residential districts. Uses permitted upon review on home occupations. This is passed on the first two readings. Details of that are on page 60 and gives you the details of what you can do regarding home occupation. Got a motion from Almacher, seconded by Barry. Almacher, you have a question?
Not a question, just a statement. Really glad to see this on the agenda and support it wholeheartedly. This stemmed from a variance request that came to the Board of Zoning Appeals for an individual who has a home-based business where she teaches music lessons in her home. And based on the current language of our zoning ordinances, she was essentially not allowed to have parking in her driveway that would accommodate her business needs. And so while the variance, I voted yes for it, the variance was not granted, everyone voted no. I think there was some support behind the scenes in order to get this changed to accommodate that usage. So glad to see it.
Very good. Ready to vote? And that passes 6-0. Now we're down to some resolutions now. Resolution 1968, a resolution to amend the FY24 operating budget to formally replace the appropriated fund balance with grant funding. Details of that are on page 66. And get a motion from Barry, second by Wilson. Turn to our city administrator for background on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, this is the $525,000 that is part of the SRO program from the state, and so we're just looking to place that back into the fund balance that had been taken out previously.
Very good. Any other questions? Ready to vote? That passes 6-0. Resolution 1969, a resolution to amend the purchasing policies and procedures of Tullahoma, City of Tullahoma. Details of that on page 68. And get a motion. Motion from Barry, seconded by Wilson. Turn to City Administrator again for background on.
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Policy.
I'm sorry, basically, this is just general information that must be included on our responses to TDEC. It has to do with conflicts of interest as cited in 200.318. So we're just asking that we're allowed to put that into the purchasing policy going forward.
Essentially, we have to do it.
Don't have a choice.
We're getting grants.
Correct.
That's what, okay. Ready to vote. Passes 6-0. Item number 23-159. This is just to consider approval of authorizing the purchase of a OmniCourt software for the city recorder's office in the amount of $22,298. The details of that again are on page 74, and I'll turn to the city administrator, and he may want to turn to our city recorder.
Yes, so in speaking with Lori, basically the software that we've been using has become outdated and obsolete. She has two different programs that she's using right now. One is for our court needs, the other for business licensing. In looking at this, there really is no other way but to purchase this new software. It will save us over the course of the year $1,900 from an annual perspective. They're charging $5,500 currently, the software vendor. Going forward, after we make the purchase of $22,298, then it will be a $3,600 a year fee. So in speaking with Lori, Lori, I definitely will have you speak if you'd like. This is going to help us, this is going to enhance our opportunities to have our systems speaking together and for us to have more updated technology to meet the needs of our citizens.
The only thing I would add is the current software, it doesn't report to the state like it should. And so we're getting a lot of feedback from the state that they're not getting the ticket information that they need. So this would eliminate that problem.
Very good. Any further questions? Ready to vote?
We need a motion on it.
She must not want it to.
I was going to say, she don't want that number. Of all items.
She was so excited.
So now you got some new software, 6-0. Item number 23-160. Consider the approval of professional services agreement, the amount of $3,600 for the Bank Card of America to prevent a credit card processing system in the city recorder's office and in the Parks and Recreation Department. The motion from Barry and a second by Wilson. Again, I'll turn to the city administrator for background.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. By taking on the service agreement of $3,600 for the Bank Card of America, this could allow us to accept debit and or credit cards at our window currently here at City Hall. You can do it online, pay according or with the debit or credit, but you are not allowed to do that currently the way we're set up. That's going to allow us again to start looking to meet the needs of our citizens who want to do it by that method. Also, in giving the opportunities to the Parks and Rec from ability to collect debit or credit cards at both community centers, but also there's a help me out, an apparatus you wear around your neck, in which concessionaire is able to scan cards as well. I think that you'll see an increase in revenue from that alone, being able to do that, because whether we want to go cashless or not, more people are choosing to use debit and credit card. So this is going to allow us to capture more revenue and make it easier for our citizens as well.
I have a question. Will they be able to use that at remote sites? I know, so they'll be able to use it at Johnson Lane or Wagner Park or wherever they're doing concessions
Correct.
now. Well, that's good.
Correct.
Any other questions? Any other comments?
Yes, I see the monthly recurring at $2,750, which, you know, are there any other monthly recurring or yearly recurring costs with the readers or anything?
There are not for the readers. There's no contract, there's no yearly fee. For the city in-house, we will pass the fee along to the customer.
The percentage fee?
Yes.
Yeah. Outside of the $2,750 a month? Okay. All right, I just want to make sure there wasn't any other big...
For Parks and Rec, they already have that fee included in their cost.
That's right.
Any further discussion? Ready to vote? That's a 6-0. Item number 23-162. Consider the approval of retaining an additional attorney who specializes in Tennessee municipal planning and zoning.
Skip one.
Excuse me, I skipped one. 161, consider approval of directing staff to draft and developing street and cut permitting process modeled after the city of East Ridge. Motion by Barry, seconded by Glick. Background on that, city administrator.
We received a packet from Alderman Glick, who had mentioned previously at a board meeting about the concerns with all of the cuts we're continuing to see in our city, namely West Lincoln Street, for example, where you'll see that. What we're looking at doing is looking at the East Ridge model, which is very complete. And then also, I had spoken with you, Mr. Mayor, and we also want to look at TUA's policies and see if we can have a collaborative agreement to understand what those cuts look like, what is permissible and what is not. So we're looking to try to set up a time where we can begin putting together an ordinance to look at that process.
I think that we should put our process in place, our ordinance in place, and I don't think we need to have them enter into an agreement with us on that. They could abide by our ordinance.
Yeah, I think it's,
I believe the intent there was simply to review their policies so that we...
But our policies are protecting our streets, and it's not, our streets are terrible now, and that's as a result of, I don't know if it's their policies or whose policies it is, but it's not working, so we're going to try to put in a policy and an ordinance in place that will work.
I think looking at alternatives is not a bad idea.
I looked at a lot of alternatives.
Very good. Alderman, City Administrator, I think our Public Works Department has a comment if you care to have them.
Yeah, Mr. Taylor, please.
I think we can put this together rather quickly with this East Ridge. I've looked at it multiple times, sent it to Alderman Glegg. I think this can be done by amendment instead of an ordinance. That would save some time since we'd have to have a public hearing, a couple of readings. We already have a policy in place. It doesn't really have a lot of teeth. So I think it could be done by an amendment instead of an ordinance. That's just all.
I'd refer to the city attorney on that, the legalities of what needs to be put in place so we can legally enforce it. Yeah. It needs to have teeth. I just want to make sure. Is there an ordinance now? You're just amending an ordinance, or?
It's an existing in it's Title 16 in our.
Okay, yeah, that's just, as long as, however, Mr. Worsham and the staff say what's going to make it legal and easy for us to enforce.
I'll be happy to look at that with Mr. Taylor and give you a recommendation about it.
Thank you.
yeah, I think I understand what Mr. Glick, his concern is. Because TUA is a separate entity from the city, this might be something in the future, unfortunately, we might have to enforce somewhat adversarial, in an adversarial nature. And I hope not, because I like to look at TUA as the Chick-fil-A of, utility services, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we're, raising the bar here, because these utility cuts, we don't always know who we're to attribute those to. Now, I do think that it might be appropriate to weigh in. They don't just do work in the city of Tullahoma, so, maybe we look at what is Franklin County doing? What is Bedford County doing? What are some of the other localities? Does anybody else have these? And I know that East Ridge does, but I think that it could be somewhat regionally cooperative, if you will. Not that we want to make it arbitrary and capricious on any one individual or point out TUA. Make sure we're not doing that and sanctioning one entity, in other words.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you for getting this. We've talked about it in the past, and we just hadn't gotten it. So thank you for pulling that off the shelf. And because I think that this is the phone calls that I get and the Facebook posts that you read about streets. It's not that we have some roads that are falling apart, right? But That's not what people are seeing. It's these dips that we're hitting, and those aren't ours. And I had a bet, which I won, and I need to collect. After we repaved Cedar Lane, the bet was that it'd be a month before somebody came along, did utility cut, and messed our road up. And that would have infuriated me, unless it was an emergency, because we just spent an exorbitant amount of money on that. And I think that I want it to have teeth. The other part of that having teeth is we have to be willing to enforce that, and we have to give staff the resources to enforce that. So I think as we talk about this ordinance putting into place, that we also talk about, are there any budgetary? Do we need to have somebody? What do we need to put into place to make sure they can do that? I don't see a problem with saying, hey, TUA, we're working on this, take some input, but at the end of the day, it's our ordinance. They're our roads. We're responsible for them. We're the ones getting phone calls about them, and it's our taxpayers' money that's being spent on those. So at the end of the day, let's do it and get it done and enforce it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, there is a fee in place that we would collect that should help to defray staff time of going out and making the inspections. Of course, we'd have to make sure the available staff was there and there was enough people to do that. The other thing I was going to say is that I looked at about 8 of these different ordinances, all from around the state. I selected East Ridge. I thought it was the best. Of course, we can get others. You could look at those if you want to, but it's not really fun reading. So I kind of did that for you. I selected it as the best. I think the Public Works Director, Robert Taylor, also concurred. He liked it as well. So it's been tested and it's worked for quite a while in East Ridge. I think it can work here. And again, it's not to penalize everybody. It's just we want, when the street has to be cut, we want to make sure that it is repaired correctly so that it lasts and it doesn't fail and cause damage to our streets, because we are spending a lot of money to repave these streets. It's one of the #1 complaints probably all of us get is the condition of our streets, and we spend a lot of money to do that, and then for them to fail, like Alderman Berry just said about Cedar Lane being cut, and I've seen that time and time again over the years I've been here, how often that happens. And I know nobody wants to do it. It has to be done, but when it has to be done, let's make sure it's done correctly and repaired correctly.
Yeah, just to kind of tag on to what Alderman Glick and Alderman Berry said, we will know before they cut, because there's an approval process that was part of the example that Alderman Glick gave us, in which we have detailed information and it must be approved before a cut is even made. So I think that will definitely help with that process. So what we'll do, I'll work with Mr. Taylor and Mr. Worsham. We'll take what we currently have, we'll add that teeth, and we'll bring back something for you to look at.
Thank you, Alderman Glick, for all your work on this.
I liked what I saw from East Ridge for sure. One of the things I think will happen is it will encourage people who are needing to get utilities across the road consider boring as opposed to cut. So they're going to look at the penalties that might be appropriate for doing a cut, and I think it'd be cheaper for us just to bore.
And the boring's gotten cheaper over the years too.
And more technology is available to do it. Anyway, any further discussion on it? Ready to vote? Passes 6-0. Okay, now we get down to consider approval of retaining an additional attorney who specializes in Tennessee municipal planning and zoning regulations, and instructs staff to advertise for a position and to accept applications. And we have a motion from Barry and a second from Mann. I don't know whose motion this is. I don't know whether it turns to the city administrator or to the city attorney.
I think Daniel put that on the agenda.
I'd be happy to respond to that if I may. I would welcome this
Okay, City Attorney.
for 2 or 3 reasons. Number one, you all may not realize this, but the attrition rate for attorneys in Tullahoma is accelerating. Bobby Carter has now become a judge. Gerald Yule has become a judge. Stacy Lynch has left to join a government organization elsewhere. 2 of our most prominent attorneys are slowly moving out of the profession, and my law partners and I are just absolutely overwhelmed with business. And usually they help us, and my contract allows them to, but they're so busy themselves, it's difficult for me to get the help that I need, and my own private practice is growing, as well as the requirements of the city. And I think this is an excellent opportunity for us to review what kinds of provisions we might want to consider to get the experts and the help we need in specialized times when we have difficult or complicated things we need to deal with. So I thank you, Alderman Berry, for doing this. I didn't consult with you about it, you didn't ask me, but I think it's a good idea, because we don't have to accept it if we don't want to, but at least we can look at alternatives, and I appreciate that.
Alderman Almaty.
You know, I hadn't given a whole lot of thought to this, and but I do think that at times that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen may have conflicts with potentially the position of the Planning Commission, and I think that it could potentially put our one and sole city attorney in a precarious position to have to advocate for one board over another when he is in contract with this board. And I think that it might be appropriate at times to potentially have a separate individual if our city attorney is to represent the interests in contract with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. That would be one reason that I would be in favor of this. And not to say that Mr. Worsham is planning to retire or is not planning to retire, but one thing that I think would be of special note is, are we looking for a city attorney that has some sort of specialty in the future like this, or are we, you know, with the city of Manchester having a full-time, and considering Mr. Worsham's other obligations, do we want to have a couple of different options for help for Mr. Worsham since his practice is growing, or I'm not trying to fire Mr. Worsham, let me just caveat with that. But, you know, with the growing needs of the city and also Mr. Worsham's practice, I think that this might be, I don't know that we vote on anything tonight, but this is something to think about.
Yeah, so this stemmed from, and sorry I didn't get to, I always forget to send my agenda items in until like day of, and I wanted to get it in. But it stemmed from some conversations that you and I had about being a little overwhelmed, and also from conversations that we have had and conversations that we've had with the community. I'm a full stack engineer in my line of work, and I cover a broad spectrum of technologies from the browser side and UI to the back end side. But if I need somebody who's specialized in DevOps and can look at scaling a massive application, I'm going to be able to, this isn't to you, you know, I'm going to go to somebody who that's all they do. And that's my intent here, is to find somebody who has all these nuances and they know that, so that as we navigate our impact fees, there's going to be a lot of research, and we already have enough research from this board onto him and to others, is let's make sure that we're getting these impact fees right. Let's make sure that we're getting some of these other questions right. And I'm not saying, when I say that, I don't mean that you're not, right? But that's let's get somebody who specializes in this field and can dedicate their attention to this, because we don't want to move quickly, right, just to move quickly, but we do need to move kind of at a rapid pace in some of these things that we're talking about with moratoriums and fees and all these other structures. And so it would be nice to have, they know the ins and outs, they've been there, they fought that, they can dedicate that time, or they can dedicate 20, you know, if it's a contracted out and they need to dedicate 30 people to it, they can do that. And so the motion tonight would, you know, is just to have worked with the city attorney, because I think that they would need to work in conjunction still with Steve, right? I think Steve is our city attorney, and so that has to be coordinated through him, and should be, is to work with him and staff and let them kind of look at that, make recommendations, and then come back to us. And however you want to do that process, I think in here it says to advertise the position and accept applications. I think we need to accept, that would be the only change in here, is it does say instruct staff to advertise for the position, and I guess they can accept applications. Yeah, sorry, I read that. That's approved. But that would be mine.
Would it be your idea for this person to be a part of the planning and code department?
No.
From the organizational structure, where does this person plug in?
Well, they would need to work with the BOMA and the Planning Commission, and really, kind of not the direction, but with the city attorney, I would feel, because there's a lot of matters that we need to coordinate through there, and I think it would kind of cause a cluster if we just went at it.
And do you foresee it being a full-time position?
I would say let's start as needed. Let's get a retainer, and then I don't think we would need a full-time person doing it, but we would need to decide retainers. And
I think we need to just get proposals from law firms that do specialize in this sort of thing. I don't recommend that you want a full-time position for this. You could have one sort of that's available as needed, and we could look at it in that way for now. Later on, Tullahoma eventually will probably need a full-time legal department as we continue to grow, if we do, and that depends on what this board and the Planning Commission do in order to ensure that we're going to have orderly growth in this town. So that's something we can look at in the future, but for now, probably a contractual arrangement with a law firm like we do with I think it's a Wimberley law firm up in Cookville. When on occasion when we need their aid, we would do that on a case-by-case basis. That's a start toward that kind of thing. I do not recommend a full-time position at all for that. That'd be too costly for the city, and I don't think we need it. Not that many controversial matters arise here that we would need that kind of expert advice for. A lot of routine things arise that are easy for us to resolve with the Planning Commission and the Planning and Code Department.
Yeah, well, and some of the things that I would like to use them for as well is helping guide and shape policy from that legal perspective as well. And, I think that's a whole other conversation. There are times where maybe we're constrained, but we're constrained because of our own ordinances, because of our own policies, and we need to reshape all of that now and be done with it. So not just representing in, somebody sues us, but who can advise and consult and help us shape our policies future forward.
Just comment, I think that anyone who has served any length of time on the Planning Commission would welcome having a resource like this.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other comments? Ready to vote? Passes 6-0. Item number 23-163, consider approval of directing staff to draft an ordinance establishing guidelines for food trucks. Motion from Barry. Second by Glick. Comment from Barry.
Mr. Jones kind of summed it up fairly well. So this stems from a lot of different things. One, as everybody knows, I peruse Facebook, and there have been some things, lately on, different vendors, and the city's doing its job, right, in removing and moving, but I think that there's a lot of open questions, number one, on what is required, what's not. I've looked at doing a food truck, and I had some questions myself. That's my goal in life. I know that's a low goal. That's what I want to do. I enjoy it, right? And so I had looked at several different ones. Murfreesboro's got kind of a neat little, they've got a cool little package on their site and everything. I mean, there's a great checklist. The ordinance is well structured. Franklin County has some different resources. Manchester is good. I do like looking at and trying to pattern around the ones that are around us, so that when you come to this tri-county area, it's not completely different when you go from Manchester, Winchester, maybe look at some things. I love the idea, and one of them that I had looked at, they designated public, if you're on private property, right, you can do it if you got all the right stuff. But they had designated some public places. We've had issues with that before, where somebody had just kind of rolled up in the city parking lot and started doing it. Maybe that's fine on certain times. We haven't determined that, and so that's something that, and there's nothing that says that they can't do it. And I think that if there's nothing that says you can't, then you can. But then business owners get upset, and it's unclear for them. So that's the intent here: is let's get some good guidelines in place. That yes, safety is huge. And let's kind of shape those off of those around us. I can send some of the ones that I had looked at as well. And when I do the agenda items, I never try to put something on here and let's approve the same. It's more just kind of discussion and let's get that thought out there so we can get stuff like Mr. Jones up here. But I agree with everything he said. So if we could take that into consideration when we do these. And I'd love to see a little brochure that says, hey, bring your food truck to Tullahoma. It's a great place to do that. So, and here's how.
Alderman Wilson.
I think it would be a good idea, as was stated in the citizen comments, that we involve some of the existing food truck vendors to participate in that. And I will say, Franklin County in the Winchester area, they do a really great job with their food trucks. They have a lot of participation. They do have at least 1 or 2 days a week they have at the farmers market where they can all come. And I think Tim's Ford State Park also has a day where there's food trucks, and all of those have been quite successful. So that certainly is something I think that we should take a look at, how they help to consult with them about how they've done it as well.
Yeah, I was glad to see this item added. I had asked staff about it a few months ago, I believe, to start looking into ordinances, and hopefully they did so we won't be starting off from scratch. Any ordinance that we do on this, or anything that I like to see, it needs to do 3 things. It needs to protect the public, number 1. Public safety is number 1. Number 2, it needs to protect the food truck vendors that are doing it the right way. Mm-hmm. And number 3, it needs to protect our brick and mortar people that have made an investment in this community already. So any ordinance I'd like to see, it needs to do those 3 things.
Good point.
Alderman Hamacher.
Yes, so from a limited government standpoint, I get a little conflicted on this one because, your business plan is your business plan. As long as you are obviously following the rules and have had your inspections and things like that, and you're set up on, per se, private property, I think that this ordinance needs to address the difference in being set up on private property versus the difference in being set up on public property, like down by the parks or things like that, because I think that that's where we get into a little more liability as a city entity, is when we are allowing, with no fee, no permit process in place, food trucks to set up next to commercial brick and mortar buildings on Tullahoma City public property. And, we're creating an avenue for them to potentially compete without permit. And that could be a little unfair. However, I think you do need to consider that when these food trucks are licensed by the state and they have their inspections and they are set up potentially on private property, we don't know the ins and outs of whatever contractual relationship. They may actually be paying fees we aren't aware of. So I am not opposed to this by any means, and I completely see the point of those brick and mortar buildings. But y'all, I love the food trucks. I am a food truck fan. And Whiskey Waffle down in Lynchburg's probably my favorite right now, just going to tell you. And I've seen them move up. They've come to Tullahoma. They've been in the mall parking lot and things like that. But yeah, just considering the difference in public-owned versus private-owned property within this ordinance would be something I would appreciate.
I would just quickly add, and we'll talk about this later in our capital plan, one of the things that we have on those projects is a pavilion at South Jackson Civic Center. And one of the things that we had originally discussed way back when was being able to do that in Winchester is great. And it brings people in, it's families. And so, that is a possibility for I consider that kind of that's the entertainment center, right? Is right there. It's at South Jackson. It's the Old Town Square. I know that it seems a little far from downtown, but that's still kind of right there in that core. And hopefully, if that is a project that we do decide to do, I hope that we do see some food truck Fridays down there. You'll see me there every Friday, not every Friday.
It'd be farther kind of away from the existing brick and mortar too. I mean, that's...
Yeah. Are you going to be selling
Food trucks for anything from ice cream to pizza. Okay, any further discussion? Ready to vote? Passes 6-0. Item number 23-164, consider approval of directing staff to schedule a joint study session with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, Planning Commission, and the Community Plan Development Committee to complete the 2011 revised plan. Motion from Barry, seconded by Mann. Go to City Administrator for background.
I put it as one item.
Okay, it's from Alderman Barry.
I'll preface with this is not the CP, I get it wrong every time, CPDC has done a great job so far, but here's kind of my thought. We got a lot of things, we got a lot of wheels happening right now, in motion right now. And we got a lot of, when we look at doing, if we do possibly do the freeze, and we look at these impact fees, and we look at these others, we need to have this plan to build those things off of. And so the thought here is not to take that out. Let's include them. Let's get all of the parties at the table at once, and let's just knock this out. Again, not speeding through it, right? But let's knock this out with everybody in the room who needs to be in the room. If it takes us 5 sessions, it takes us 5 sessions. If it takes us 6, then it takes us 6. But let's do it. Let's get it done so that we can get this new attorney in. I'd love to have that attorney in there when we're doing those pieces. And let's get them so we can, when we're looking at the freeze, we need to know that plan and where we want to implement some of these policies. And so that's my thing there is really let's get all the decision makers at the table at once and let's knock this out. Same way we're going to do the sign ordinance. I think it works that better. Otherwise, I have to kind of go through CPDC, Planning Commission, then to BOMA, and then a couple readings. So you're looking at it could be months. And they've done a great job. But let's get the heads together who need to be there and let's do it.
Hold on, Mark.
Yeah, I said I was going to bring this up again, and I've pulled it up on my phone now just to let the rest of you guys know if anybody is interested. I personally would like to move the study session that's scheduled on Monday to a different day, and I know Bobby has a conflict next Wednesday as well. The GovCon, the Governor's Conference 2023, we traditionally have gone to all of these TML conferences, but we skip out on some of these that I feel like are maybe a little bit more important. And this is only a 2-day conference. The Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development has announced their agenda for its annual Governor's Conference. It's a two-day event in Chattanooga that begins at 11:30 a.m. on September 18th. with the Commissioners Luncheon featuring a conversation with Stuart McWhorter. They will have the Chattanooga Mayor Tim Kelly and Hamilton County Mayor Weston Walt. The focus will be on economic development project wins, the role the county plays in job creation, and the mayor's continued efforts to provide workforce opportunities for area high school students to feed into the talent pipeline of the future. They have quite a bit of programming on entrepreneurship and small business, childcare as an economic development tool, and as well they have one on strategies for communities to identify their unique music scene, the key stakeholders in the region, and the steps needed to ensure their community is taking advantage of this key economic driver. A lot of things that particularly I think are relevant to what we have here in Tullahoma and some of the needs. And I think getting us together with those key stakeholders is quite crucial. And I think that even if you could only attend one day of the conference or perhaps the second day, there's so much in both days that I think that even just sending our city administrator or offering that to him or even somebody in our planning department, I think that might, I mean, those, if we can't be there, somebody from Tullahoma should be represented. And so for that reason, I would like to potentially reschedule the meeting for the 18th on sign ordinances, or perhaps make that schedule, that study session, a part of our regular agenda at the next board meeting. And then, Bobby, I don't want to speak to your availability, but I know you were highly interested in that potential study session, and maybe there's another day we can reschedule it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
Well, I would suggest we just have staff survey the board to see.
I know
everybody's going to have a conflict for some time.
Sure.
I have more availability this week as well, if that works for anybody to do any of these study sessions.
Yeah, I do too, and this week and the last week as well.
Alderman Glegg.
Getting back to what the agenda item was.
Sorry.
I wasn't going to say it.
Well, study session
we
fell on
digressed.
that day.
Okay,
The study session fell on that day, and that's why I'm like, that's the conflict.
Okay, I appreciate Alderman Berry's will to try to move things forward on this. I think, though, that the CPDC is really doing a good job of moving forward. I think it probably was just a misnomer on your part here when you said the 2011 revised plan, because that's already been completed. Yeah. They've done that, and we voted, and this will be, and what they are earnestly working on now is the revision of the old proposed 2040 plan. We gave them in our original instructions to them, we gave them to 2025 to come up with a plan. In fact, they're on schedule to have this done in early spring. So I think that we should let them remain the course, and there's a couple of reasons. They've really got into it deep right now. They've got into some areas. It takes a little more discussion, a little more time than what you would think. And in their meetings, they don't have to operate on the same more stilted protocol that we do here sometimes. Sometimes we don't, but and it's a real good free exchange of ideas and good brainstorming sessions, and they've come up with a lot of good things. I think it would be good for this board and good for the Planning Commission to have them come up with the revisions, would give the Planning Commission and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen a good starting point. We won't have to start and go through everything again, page by page. They are going through that plan page by page and line by line at some points, and discussing all these items and really getting down to what they think is going to be best for Tullahoma. I think if they'll be done with it that soon, it would be a great starting point for us as a board and the Planning Commission to have. And so I would say let's let them remain the course.
Alderman Berry?
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. I'd like to maybe get them to come and give us an update on where they are and take us through where when we're looking at the 2040 plan itself, it's like the actual plan is only like 20-something pages, 28, 32, 35 pages. The actual plan's not that. It's the data stuff that's...
There's a lot of ancillary...
There's a lot of data that in the back end, but the actual plan itself is not that much. And I do like having them go through the revisions, but there's a lot happening in the city of Tullahoma right now. And there's a lot of things coming fast and furious at our planning commission and this board. And unless we were willing to put a moratorium until we finished a plan, without a plan, a moratorium is going to do us a little bit of good, but we don't know where we're putting, well, I mean, we kind of know where we're putting stuff with the 2011 plan, we kind of don't. And so I would like to, at a minimum, have them come and kind of give us an update and report. We started this back in December, November, October of last year. And
would you like to amend your motion, just ask for that for now?
I'll take that motion, or that for now, as I'll amend to say, let's come and update the board on where we're at, what that progress is, and then at that time, then we can step back and say, hey, let's start putting let's get a timeline in place.
Should that be in conjunction with the date we have the moratorium conversation with the planning commission?
That might be a good idea, yeah. And another thing I will say, and we had a lot of discussion on this at the committee. I'm not a voting member or anything on that, but I go to the meetings. We did have a lot of discussion on whether we wanted to bring the plan back to this board in sections. And not bring the full plan, but do it section by section and revise a whole section, bring that package to the board and have the board accept that. And then after approved section by section, then it would be approved as a whole. We decided not to do that, but that could be another avenue if you're wanting pieces of it quicker. But I think you'll be pleased when they come and give you a progress report and let you know where they're going. That we probably should have put into the plan originally regular progress reports. I think I did have in there. We just haven't done it. So let's take advantage of that. Let's do that. Let's have them give a progress report. If we're not happy, we could take another stance.
Wasn't that new date on that kind of tossed around as the 25th on our email chain today? Is everybody still okay with that? And are we going to do that prior to the planning commission meeting, or is that a planning commission meeting?
Planning commission meeting starts at 4:30, so that's good.
Is that next week? No, next week is planning commission.
Yeah, next week.
the 18th
is planning.
So it would be the following week. So that would be perfect then.
So it's just that.
No, we have a board meeting, don't we? We have a board meeting on the 25th.
No, the 25th is the 5th Monday.
No.
We only have the 2nd and 4th.
The 25th is
September's
our Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting.
Is it?
Do we have a 5th Monday?
I thought there were 5 Mondays in September.
There's 5 in October.
5 in October. But yeah, the 25th is I was looking at October.
Well, I think it's just very important. I think if we can.
27th. Everybody good on it? There's this application for staff, Doodle. So you can put in different time, because we keep having this, it's difficult getting schedules. There's a free version where you can reach out to everybody and you can put in different times and people can kind of vote, this is my availability, and then that will calculate, hey, here's where, and that may help solve some of these, some of those issues that we did have, scheduling issues.
I don't think we should have a time constraint, so I am a little concerned with us having our regular agenda.
Yeah, I would say let's shoot for this 27th.
Is everybody
that works for me
kosher with the 27th?
As far as I know.
And that's a joint study session.
With the CPDC.
And the planning commission.
Yeah. That's when.
27th of September.
And the planning commission, yes. And it should be titled a special called meeting so we can take action, though. Didn't we originally have?
It's a special called.
It's a special called meeting, not a study session.
Yeah, that's right.
Will we, is that when we're going to be discussing the moratorium also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So special call meeting on the 27th.
Can we put two things on special calls?
As long as it's listed.
So we list both of them, and those are the two things that's good.
Would you want that at 5:30?
Are we going to shoot for 5:30 or y'all want to do it earlier?
I'm available earlier. I mean,
I'm okay with no earlier than 4.
Yeah, 4:30?
No earlier than 7 a.m.
Why did we select the 27th?
Because we have a regular board meeting on the 25th.
How about the 28th?
I have football. I mean, you can rip me away from my kids.
Mayor, if
that's
you
what
have
we wanna
church that
do.
night, we could move the meeting up to 4.
Not church, but I'm saying, is there some reason, have other things that are scheduled that night? Not church, but other things. And I'm just asking, is there some reason we're doing it the 27th instead of the 28th?
Because I threw out the 27th.
26th.
26th,
I'm okay with the 26th.
Tuesday.
I mean, I probably won't be able to come.
No, you need to be there. So let's get a date we can all be there.
What about?
I've got
The 20, so the days,
26th of both.
I'm hoping that I'll have a free Monday here after a conversation we have a month. But I mean, I'm going to be honest, I've got football Tuesday and Thursday through October.
What about October the 2nd? That's the next Monday.
Mayor, do you have any
fine
free
with me.
time on that Wednesday, the 27th?
Mathis won't be available.
And October the 7th puts us in a Monday, which is a typical meeting date for us. It's a free
How about
Monday.
October 2nd?
October 2nd is the first Monday of the month, so we don't have a meeting.
I'm okay.
I'm okay with October 2nd.
Scheduled for October 2nd.
Is that good with everybody?
4:30?
4:30, yeah.
Call
let's-
Mathis.
4:30?
Let's move it up. 4:30, October 2nd.
Get him off the teachers.
Good for me. Okay.
Yeah, I'll withdraw my motion on I'll just withdraw my motion on that and we'll just make that clean.
And would you care to make a motion to set that date?
I don't know that we need to make a motion to set that. I mean, we can if we want. but
Okay, that's fine.
it's just, yeah, it's,
And you might want to add CPDC.
Yeah. Well, yeah, who is, and is somebody going to be?
You have it up in the top, I see it.
I can't. You're the liaison.
So Monday at
October 2nd, 4:30.
October 2nd, 4:30.
Mr. Mann, is that okay with you?
That's fine.
Very good. Progress. Item number 23-165, consider approval of directing staff to determine if the city of Tullahoma can move the municipal board of mayor and alderman, board of education, and judge elections from August to November with the state and federal elections. So your motion, Alderman Derry?
Yep.
So got a motion? Did you have a second? Second by Mann. Before we vote, we have a comment from our city attorney. Please address the board.
Yes, if I might, this is something that we considered at the charter meeting that we had last week. It may require a change in our charter, which we can do and incorporate that with what we're working on now. We have to check with state law as well to make sure that we don't conflict with state law that does prescribe certain periods and times for elections. So Honda Rogers is working on that provision right now, and we're considering that for you all, and we'll get back with you after we hear from her about that. But we can incorporate into our charter probably, if it's possible to do that and not conflict with state law.
Would you want to amend the motion to avoid the revision coming from the charter?
So, no, this is to direct them to do it with the charter as they're doing it.
Yeah.
So I've spoken with Andy Farah at the Election Commission. I've spoken with Representative Bricken on, whether we can, and I think, as he had said, they had spoken about it at the charter thing. So this would be, once they get that details figured out, go ahead and add it instead of just, my thought is if we have something that we kind of want, we know that we're working on some things, but some of these may take investigation, instead of just waiting to do it all, if we get it all in October, wherever, we can get them ahead of time while they got the team together, they can be doing that research, we can get it in there, and it's And this is one of those where we do need to check with Rush. We do need, because this is going to do school and the judicial as well, which we need to move the school anyway.
That never got done.
So it got sent up, and then there were some, the way that it was written, it would have affected all municipal schools. And Tullahoma's in Coffee County, and of course, you know, we're the only ones that should have. Because the way you've got to write these, you can't say specifically Tullahoma. It's got to say a city of X size of population this time and yada yada. It's so weird, right, when you do these revisions, because you can't write law for one specific place at the state level. It's so weird. But, so that's my thought here is, let's go ahead and get those wheels in motion when they figure it out. If we say, yes, that's something we want to do, they include it in that charter change, and we just approve it when it comes through.
Alderman Glick?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think, and that was the points that I was going to make, is if we do this, let's not make the same mistake we did last time and leave out the school. We've got to have everything, or else we're not saving anything whatsoever. The other thing I just had I was wondering about, and I don't know, and that would be some of the research, would this not be able to take effect until 2028 to where it wouldn't affect any of our terms?
As long as we get it in January, this has got to be in January. Rush can have it passed, and we would just be able to notify Andy prior to because we don't pull until April, so it would need to come before that date, and it would take effect immediately next year.
So January 2024.
Yeah. So it's not going to change our term. Well, we would have to.
It would be adding.
It would have to push somebody's term to, well, mine, yours, and yours.
Not mine.
No, us four.
I don't want to talk
It would move us for a few extra months to November.
Can we check? I'll wait.
That was my question. I didn't know if if you could do that.
I don't think you can extend your own term. Remember when we did this? It went into effect because the 2022 election happened, so it didn't actually go into.
We all got extended except for Ruba and myself. The mayor's got extended, your seat got extended, Robin's got extended. Everybody but
I think the process started before, I mean, the reason I didn't know is because that process had actually already commenced before I got elected. That's why I thought that was the only reason it could extend mine.
I think that's what I'm remembering back from when I was an employee and sitting in on these meetings on the other side. So I remember that discussion. So that's just one thing.
But he was alderman when the process started.
We didn't do that until you were on the board. You were on the board.
When it was finalized, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't start until it was finalized. He was mayor when we made that charter change. Your term got extended.
But it had already been sent to the state, hadn't it?
That's what I was concerned about. Okay, so I have
that's what this item is.
I have something to add to that.
Let's make sure we get it right. We got it wrong.
Hold on,
We got it wrong before. Let's get it right.
Okay, so I'll be hated for this, but it's okay. As many of you know, I'm just going to tell you the unintended consequence of this. Now, the unintended consequence is something I might actually like, but I don't know that the citizens will. The unintended consequence of this is since that last change, there was a change with municipal elections across the state and school boards. And so school boards have partisan elections. And so they already experience a primary. Now, with our charter change, I have always been a proponent of municipal elections being partisan. And while there is a code in the state right now that says that all municipal elections are nonpartisan, obviously it conflicts with the school board now, that is unless a city charter says otherwise. That is a conversation for our city charter as well, as if we're going to do this, municipal elections are already partisan, your state and federal elections are already partisan, your county elections are already partisan, your judge elections are partisan. Do we want to make the city of Tullahoma have partisan elections and have primaries? Now, I'm not saying we do or we don't, I fought this battle because I said there was convolution in the state statute, especially with the school boards being partisan and those being municipal elections, that it shouldn't be banned, in other words. But then I found out later on that if the city charter allows it, and there are certain city charters who do, then you can actually have partisan municipal elections. Whether or not you want this to be partisan, if our charter does not say so, when you make this move, the unintended consequences, you will absolutely have more partisan municipal elections, because every other election going on at that same time will be partisan. So that's just me calling the elephant out in the room. I like it, but there are certain people on this board who did not like that so much. So just for you to think about.
The only other thing I'd like to say is, when you move us to the elections for aldermen and city of people to the national election, we could be kind of lost in all everything that's going on. With the national election, there'll be state offices and stuff. So it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. I can see it both ways, but I could also see that, well, there will be more people getting out and vote. Will the people getting out to vote actually be up to date on the issues that they're voting on as far as the city people go? I know the people that are getting out and voting in August, or when we traditionally have elections, they are voting because they do keep up with it and care. So it's just, we have the danger of just kind of getting lost and thrown in with all the other names on a big ballot, and people just going and picking the first one in every list. So that's just something to think about.
Oh, Mary, excuse me, I have to weigh in. Your points about getting lost in the conversation of national issues and highly partisan rhetoric that goes on with the national elections. I would love to see it. Citizens looking at Tullahoma issues, looking at the issues that are affecting us, not what's outside California or whatever. So I think keeping our municipal code, keeping our municipal government nonpartisan is the very best that Tullahoma can do. We have had on this board, we've had good aldermen that are as far left as you can be, and we've got an alderman on this board as far right as you can be, and they're all good aldermen. But if you get it too partisan, then you let other things come in and take the focus away from what people need to be concerned about. So I'd certainly love to see us keeping this. And by the way, if we were to make this a partisan election, then we'd have to have a primary.
We already have one for the school board.
And we have one for the tree board. So you're going to still have the election in August. Still going to have the election in August, regardless. So I would be much in favor of keeping the election cycle as it is. Alderman Barry.
Yeah, so this doesn't save money, right? This has nothing to do with a money saver. We're already doing that. It's moving us to every 2 years is what did the money thing, right? So that's gone. This is in August, we average 1,500 to 1,800 people, about 10%, 11% of our voting populace comes out to vote in August. And in this last August, in November, you've got a representative, maybe a senator, and maybe president, the governor. You've got like 5, 6 people on the ballot, where, last ballot, we had 40-something people on the ballot. So if we're looking at overshadowing, nobody cared. I'm not going to say nobody cared. The people who came out and voted. My hope is that when you vote in May, August, because there's a May primary, right, for in presidential years, or March, or May, and whether it's in August or whatever you come out and vote, that you're doing it because you're paying attention and you are looking at the ballot and you come in there. And I'm going to give the voters the benefit of the doubt on that one, that they are educated, not the benefit of the doubt, but they are educated, and that's why they're showing up, educated on the issues, and that's why they're showing up. But the big thing here is, in our November, we're looking at closer to 30% of people that come out and show up to vote. And so if the name of the game is as many, I wish that we could get 25, 30% of the voters to come out in August, but we've been doing it since what, 1950 something, and we haven't. And so let's get it to a place where we know that the people are turning out. It's not going to be, there's less likely of a chance for it to be overshadowed because you have less people on the ballot. Maybe it is. Now, the partisan thing is a separate conversation as far as making ours partisan. You know, and I would like, if we want to have that conversation, let's have that conversation. I would like to do it separate from this item.
Well, just a question. Just a quick question is the Charter Committee already considering this, or will you only consider it if this item passes? At any rate, will we have a second shot at deciding whether we want to do it when we pass the charter?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So it's all, so it's really just to
say, hey, guys, put the resources in.
So, a couple of things. The Board of Education never really caught up to us. They didn't, it never really got changed. So, we are still having to pay for an election right now. Up until 2025. That cost the city roughly $30,000.
So we've been fortunate now that hasn't happened. The first time it will happen is in 25.
Right, that it would cost the city, it's about $36,000, and we don't have any other election cycle during that Board of Education cycle. So I think that we definitely need to get them on board, either to move it with us.
It's our call.
Yeah. Or we gotta get the ball moving to move that up with us, no matter which way we go. That needs to happen. And something else, I do believe that this would combat voter apathy a bit, and I think that would be great to have more of a voter turnout and more voter involvement. I did want to say, I think that we should have the partisan conversation at a different date, but something that's a misnomer, just for the general public, is nonpartisan does not mean that any of us up here are not affiliated with parties, as Mr. Mayor even pointed out. Nonpartisan simply means that the city of Tullahoma does not hold a primary for its elections, and there are not party-sponsored primaries or individuals who run on a party ticket. Does not mean that particularly the individuals who serve on this board are not partisan. So while I think it's almost somewhat confusion that people think, well, you're supposed to be nonpartisan. No, that's not what this means. The fact that the city of Tullahoma has nonpartisan elections simply means that we have an at-large election, that the individual candidates are not necessarily supported or affiliated in a primary with a particular party. However, the parties can choose to endorse who they want to in whatever elections they want to. I mean, they are individual civic organizations. And so there was a lot of change last year, and that became kind of a contentious issue. But I can see that I can see this being a really good change, so I support it.
And it's not as hot in October.
Alderman Wilson.
On that point, thanks, Mayor. On that point, I will say that when you're someone new moving into a community, that sometimes, election time, it can be overwhelming because you may not have a full grasp of, or knowledge of who's running for what. And sometimes the only thing that helps you make sense of, who to vote for, or one of the factors or decisions might be their party affiliation. So sometimes it can help assist and we do have a lot of new folks in town, and that might be a good way for them to at least have a fighting chance of knowing who to vote for.
Alderman Berry.
Yeah, the last thing I would kind of add is, and quickly, is the state may end up forcing us to do this anyway, right? There was legislation last time, and I think it was still just kind of left in committee, and they're going to take it up again next year. So we're just going to be ahead of the ball. So that would be and yeah, that's what this is a vote. It's just say, hey, let's go ahead and get that included, put the resources in, tell them to go ahead and find out, talk to who they need to.
Any further comment? Ready to vote? Passes 5-1. Last item on the agenda. Consider obtaining the services of Patrick Garrett and Jacob with DC to assist the city of Tullahoma in regaining custody of the documents that were obtained by the district attorney and office in reference to the shredding bin. And will also assist in the investigation of Human Resources Director in relation to her involvement in that incident and provide a report to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen on its findings. Is there a motion? Motion from Wilson, second by Hallmacher. Turn to the city attorney to address that issue.
I have discussed this matter with a couple of attorneys here locally, and they probably will not be interested in representing the city in this matter. Y'all, instructed me to find someone to represent the city in this matter. It's not a bad idea if y'all want to pursue this.
Any discussion? Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, I just, I know this is kind of a pressing matter, and I just thought in the spirit of trying to streamline things, I know that City Attorney Worsham has a busy practice, and I was able to do some research and find this group, and I think that if you read the background information, you'll see that they're very well qualified.
Further discussion? Not ready to vote. That motion fails, it ties, it dies. Any other new business? Seeing no other new business, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen will be adjourned. And we'll take a 5-minute recess before we go into study session.
I'm not going to be here.